Welcome to the new EFAS European Flood Awareness System homepage. If you've not already looked at this, just a very brief description of where you can find some useful information before I talk about the map viewer, the new interface. So things have been moved around a little bit. You can find all the existing information about the EFAS model and how you access the data and how you can collaborate along these links at the top. Information about upcoming events and news is under this tab. So, for example, information on the annual meeting later this year, 2019, is available here. One very useful section is the resources section. So here you find, for example, monthly summaries and the bi-monthly bulletin. What I want to draw your attention to is that webinars, including this webinar, will be uploaded to this section. And here you can also listen to previous webinars on, for example, flash flooding, the extended domain, and the Balkan flooding in 2016. And this will be updated continually. If I go back, you also see you have a link to tutorials. This is also a work in progress right now, but here in the future you will be able to access short, several minute long tutorial videos which describe specific aspects of both, for example, the website, but also the new interface, so how you use specific functionality. I today am going to talk more generally about the new interface and just to give you an overview of how it works and where you can find the data and what the main differences are between the old system and this new system. So let's log in. You can do that either by pressing the Access Map Viewer button here, or you can press Login, which I will do now. So for this I have a test account, which I will log into. If you're unable to log in, it probably means that you are a new person at your institution. Please email us if you cannot log in via info@efas.eu, and we will fix the login information for you. Otherwise, your username or email address is the same as you previously had, and you received an email with the password from the ECMWF previously. When you first log in, you should change this password. Anyway, when we log in, you'll see whilst it's loading that you get a little message about which browsers are compatible. Just to reiterate this, you can use Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Safari, Opera or Chrome. You cannot use Windows Explorer, Microsoft Explorer. This is not compatible, but there are 5 other browsers that can be used. So things look a little bit different. You'll see when we first log in, we are in the map viewer. So here at the top we have some links. We have a link to the home page. We have a link to the map viewer, which is what we're currently looking at. And we have a link to something called the dashboard. This is new, and this I will talk about during the webinar. You also see something called feedback and cut. You will not be able to see these when you log in. At the moment you can see feedback, but this will be in the final version, which will be very, very soon released. You will not be able to see these. These are specific to the forecaster. But you will be able to see this little green button, which tells you if the status of the it tells you about the status of the service. So if there are any problems, you can find out about them here. If, for example, a model run has not appeared, you'll probably find out why here. And then here you also have a link which gives you user settings. You can log out, and you can go to full screen mode. So in terms of the map viewer, it's very intuitive. You zoom in and out, as with any map viewing software. If you press the button here, you go to Europe, so you go to the full view. You can search for a given address, so for example SMHI in Sweden. I can search for, press enter, and I immediately zoom into exactly where I am now, which is very useful. Otherwise, all the data, all the forecast products are available along these links at the top, and this is no different to today. Mainly, I will show you a few differences, but most things are unchanged. So we have flood summary layers. These are all as today. You turn these on and off by just clicking on the layer, so that it turns orange. So, for example, real-time hydrographs, you can turn on and off. This is unchanged from today in terms of the content. Hydrological layers, the different hydrological layers are all available here. Different models and also hydrological skill, seasonal outlook. Initial conditions in the model are available. Again, the same as today. Flash flood are all under one menu. Static layers, for example, different catchments, major rivers, country borders. Meteorological layers, the different meteorological models, DWD, E7WF, and the Cosmo LEPS model. One change is that the animation from the DWD, from the E7WF and the Cosmo model, not the DWD, are available in a separate tab. So here you just click on the model that you want to look at, and again, as today, you play, as in the previous system, you play the simulation. So no change there. And the one change, of course, is that you can drag around this window and move it out of the way if you want to look at this at the same time as looking at something else. You can also turn on the active notifications, and this is different from today. So now you must actively press this button in order to show the notifications that have been sent at the moment. These are not live, these are just test notifications. But again, the notifications have the same categories. You can click here, and you can see the different notifications that can be sent: formal, informal, and flash flood. Again, you can move around this box. You can click on a given notification, you then zoom into it. You can also then even click on the email that was sent to find out a little bit more about that notification. And you can minimize this if you don't want it to cover the window, or you can turn it off. I won't talk about these last two buttons here, but these are if you want to look at feedback that has been provided on a missed event, for example. I am going to talk about how you provide feedback a little bit later on. So if we just zoom back to the full extent, let's turn on some layers and have a look at how you work with layers in the new map viewer. So let's turn on flood probability less than 48 hours. Reporting points greater than 5-year return period. We'll have flash flood turned on, the ERIC reporting points. Initial conditions, so moisture anomaly. And lastly, the precipitation field from the deterministic E7WF model. Okay, so now we've got quite a lot of information on the map. What happens now is that you see these layers are populated in this menu on the right hand side. And what you can do is you can turn off layers. So here the difference is that you don't need to turn them off in this menu over here. You can do that, but then they disappear from this menu. But you can turn them off temporarily on this menu. And what you can do here is, if we just turn back on the precipitation, for example, you can change the transparency. So if we turn on the reporting points as well, so now there are no reporting points. Yes, there are. They now appeared. There was a slight delay. So you can see here the transparency can be changed so that you can see the reporting points. But what you can also do is you can actually reorder these layers, like in any GIS program. So you can, if you click on this little hand, you can then drag up your reporting points, for example, to the top, so that now, even if we have the transparency on the rainfall on full, you can still see both layers at the same time, which is very useful. Other important things, this little question mark means that that particular layer is queryable. So for the reporting points, it means we can click on it and we receive more information. With the precipitation, you cannot query that layer. And each layer also has a legend, exactly the same information as in the previous system. And you can also remove the layer here rather than going back to this menu here. Exactly as in the previous system, you can change the date to a previous forecast both by selecting the date and by going back and forwards with these arrows. And you can go to the latest forecast by clicking the green clock symbol. If we zoom in to a particular reporting point, so let's zoom into Greece, we can click on this reporting point. The information that you get up is the same as today. Again, please ignore these buttons which say remove from cart, add to cart. These are because we're logged in as a forecaster. You will not be able to see these, but everything else you will be able to see. So one of the changes is just how the information is displayed, the order of the information. So now, for example, the return period hydrographs are shown next to each other, which is very useful because now you can directly compare the ECNWF simulations with the Cosmo ensemble simulations. Same thing for rainfall, snow melt, and temperature. Everything is next to each other, so you can do a much more direct comparison. Otherwise, there is no real change. The contingency tables, which tell you about the consistency of the model simulations, are exactly the same. There is something new down the bottom, which is called Create Widget with this data. I will come back to that. That is related to this dashboard, so we will revisit that very shortly. You can of course move this window around. If you were to, and you can resize the window, and you'll see everything scales according to how much you resize it. So it should always work on whichever screen resolution that you're looking at. There are also some links up the top right here. There is something called Report a Missing Event. I will show that next. But before that, there is a WMS. You can add a web mapping service. So if you have an external data source, which is a web mapping service, you can load that into the map, and then it will appear in your layers. So that's very useful. Map options, you can change. This is where you change the base layer. So that's no longer hidden away in the other menu. It's now a separate menu. The same options for different maps, and you can also capture a screenshot. So if you click this, you will then download the current screen that you're looking at. And then lastly, there is something called User Preset Save Load. That is also related to this dashboard, and I will demonstrate that also shortly. One of the changes in the new system is how feedback is provided. Let's say that you want to provide feedback to report an event that was missed, so an event that we didn't provide a notification for that occurred in your country or in your region. If we just firstly turn on and off some layers, you'll see now the layers area has disappeared. That's because you need to press this plus icon here. If I now turn off everything so we can see very clearly, I will zoom in to Sweden, just for an example. So, for those of you that don't have good Swedish geography, this is Norrköping, this is where I am currently sitting, this is where SMHI is. We can report a missing event. So let's say that we know an event was missed. We click on this missing event button, we then click on the map, and then a new window will open with the information that you must provide about the event that was missed. So, for example, when did the event take place? You just press here and you select the date, and if we do that, if we say that the event occurred last week, Wednesday to Thursday, for example, then you must enter when the peak flows occurred, say it occurred on Thursday, and then the country, the region, the name of the river. The coordinates is already filled in. The type of flood event, flash flood, riverine, urban, coastal. If you know the return period, then you can enter it here. The impact, so if you know that, for example, there was damage to a road or there were evacuations of people, you can include that information. And then what caused the flood event. So for example, maybe in Sweden it was snow melting. So here you select it and you drag it to the other side. Snow melting and some extreme rainfall at the same time. Otherwise you can fill in the cause here if it was something else. You can describe how much rain fell, whether it was predicted by your own national system, if you have one, and whether there was a warning, and also whether it was reported in the media, and some details if it was, in the further comments box. You can also upload a file, so for example if you have photos, GIS data, reports from your institution, and then you send this, and then this automatically comes to ourselves. So this is very useful new functionality. It improves the way we collect feedback. If it's not a missed event, but instead you've received a notification from EFAS, and when you receive the notification email, so here I have made a test. So for example, here is a EFAS formal flood notification. This is only for formal flood notifications where we collect this information. If you've received a formal flood notification, then there will be a link now at the bottom for leaving feedback. If we click on that link, then you will open up the EFAS viewer. You may need to log in if you're not already logged in. And here you will provide information on the event. So very basic information. Here you can see your user. So here I'm logged in as a test from the United Kingdom, which is the EFAS has set up this account. You will see the event info should load here. It seems to be not loading right now, but the event info will load here. And then, was a flood observed in or around the area? Yes or no, very simply. And then how would you rate the added value of the forecast from a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is best. Then if you want to report any specific information, for example, reports, pictures, graphs from your own forecasting system if you have extra data, links to news articles, and any other information you think is relevant. This is now provided via the EFAS interface, and you click send once you've filled this in. So like I said, all this is sent via, you access this via the notification that you will receive from us. So that was, if I just close this down, that was all I wanted to say about the new feedback system. Again, we will go into this in more detail in specific tutorials and at the annual meeting. So if we now go back to the main view. So now I want to demonstrate the dashboard. What is the dashboard? The best way to demonstrate this, so you understand, is to actually load some data into here. But the dashboard is a way of looking at different forecast products, different forecasts, different time periods at the same time on one screen. So the way you do this, if we go first back to the map viewer, let's say you want to look at some different products for a particular date. First of all, I will turn off all these existing layers. I'm going to add hydrological skill under hydrological layers onto the map. And I'm going to change the date to the 3rd of November last year. Saturday the 3rd of November. And I'm going to turn on the 5-year return period reporting points, and I'm going to zoom in to the Po Basin in northern Italy. Okay. And now if I turn back off hydrological skill quickly, so maybe I'm interested in just this reporting point for some reason. So now I've opened up the return period graphs and the contingency table information. So here I can see, for example, that according to the ECWF's ensemble, there was very little response, there was very little rainfall in the model, whereas in the deterministic DWD run, it was up to around about the 5-year return period, and according to the Cosmo model, it was on average also up to around about 5-year return period. So say I want to save this to compare it to other information. This is where I can use this create widget with this data. So what I do is I click here and I give it a name. So I'm going to call it Po reporting point November 2018. Then I press create widget with this data. And you see up here it tells me that this has been successfully created. Okay, at the moment you're probably wondering what this does, but let me keep going. I'm also then interested in the model skill, so now I'm going to turn off the reporting points and turn on the model skill. For the same point, if I click on the model skill for this area, so maybe I'm looking here and I see that during the calibration period and the validation period, it looks like the model underestimated the peak flows in some cases compared to the observations. So maybe I just want to create a widget with this as well. So this one I'm going to call model skill po November 2018. Again, I click create widget with this data, and again you see it now creates this. And then lastly, I also want to have a look at the accumulated precipitation. So again, I turn off hydrological skill, turn back on the reporting points, which are above the rainfall layer, so I can see them. If I drag this below, you'll see they disappear. And maybe I also want to have the country borders on the map, so I can see a bit more clearly where I am. Okay, so now what I can do is I can save this current view as a widget as well. So I click on this little wheel at the top, user preset save load. And it's exactly the same as what I did before, but with the data, so where I saved them. So here I will give it a name, Po Rainfall November 2018. I have to have this button selected, show the map in the selected date time. That means that it will always show it for this particular day, and I press save. And exactly the same as before, you see I get a green notification that it's successfully saved. Okay, but what's the point in this? Well, if I go to the dashboard, I can now add these things that I have created into my dashboard. So I press add remove widgets. So I just created 3 widgets in different categories. So you can see I have the preset widgets, which is the rainfall, the map view. I also have features, which is the actual data. I have 3 of these. What I do is I click on them, and then this pops up on my map. And I can do this for all of them. Okay, so now I have all of these on my dashboard. But you'll see I'm zoomed out on this one, and I really want to be zoomed into the particular area. So I unlock this particular view, and then I just, exactly as on the main map viewer, I just zoom into where I'm interested in. And I can change the size of this. You see if I just drag this, I don't know why it disappeared to the bottom, but I can drag and I can move it around on my screen. So now it's back at the top. It's a lot easier if you're not working on a small laptop screen, as I currently am. But you can see now I've zoomed into where I'm interested in. Let's now resize this to how we want it. Let's say we want it as a square like that. And then I can save. So I've now saved this again, zoom into where I want it to be, and I can lock it. And then I can do exactly the same thing with these other 2. So let's say I want to have, on the top right, I want to have the information on the model skill. And maybe now these are a little bit too big, so I'll make them slightly smaller. So I do that so I can only see the model skill. And maybe along the bottom I want to have the hydrographs so I can see these at the same time. So I can do something like this. So I can have all the information from different products available to me at the same time. So this might be useful for making a summary about a particular event, for example. So here I can make a screenshot of this, and then I can input it into a presentation. It's also just a very nice way of visualizing the data at the same time, externally from the map viewer, where it's more difficult to have. You can't have different windows open at the same time. So the dashboard, which is a new functionality, is basically a way of visualizing different types of information at the same time. And you can even visualize different time periods at the same time. So I could, for example, have this rainfall visualization for the days leading up to this particular event to see the progression of the rainfall accumulations. So that was all I wanted to say, actually, about the new viewer. Like I said at the beginning, things are in general very similar in terms of the data available, but there are some new functionalities which improve the user experience, predominantly the feedback, how that is obtained, and also this dashboard. I should also say that any changes that you would like to see in terms of the products, how they look, and other functionality, please do provide us with your ideas and any problems you encounter, any bugs that you encounter. Please do report these. We think we've captured most of them now, but there may still be some problems. So, that was slightly longer than I had hoped, 25 minutes, but we will now take time for any questions. Thank you.